why you use them and maybe what materials you rejected along the way?
Okay, so right now the material is Reflectix on the outside, but the main purpose of the material is just to provide a reflective covering. Because as far as we've seen, no cold packs or no ice carriers have any kind of reflective covering, and radiation is actually one of the major causes of like heating. So by adding that reflective covering, like we take that that extra jump to make it better. And the frame itself is, in this case, it's made of wood, but in actual manufacturing, we have, Trisha can tell you about the plastic mold.
Sure. So in our actual manufacturing, we'll be, as I said before, in our supply chain, we'll be going to a manufacturer for cool boxes, and there we'll have an injection mold, and so we'll inject the high-density polyethylene to make the mold.
Is there more than one size? Do you have different size boxes or a range of it, or is it just the whole model?
So we only have one size, and the reason for that is that after we talked to our contacts in India, they have told us that like the actual workers, they on an average trip during the week in the last mile, they carry about 4 vaccines because each vaccine has about 20 doses, and like vaccine mailers, they take around like 9 vaccines because like that's a lot more people. Again, it's only like a few, like 9 vials because each vial has a lot of doses. So we believe that just a 9-slot carrier is enough, and it also conserves size to put less strain on the health workers.
So can you help me understand how big this market really is and how that relates to units sold?
So in 2020, PATH has estimated that there is a need for approximately 2.3 million passive vaccine carriers, which is what our product is. And this translates to approximately $117.3 million just for this market. So once we penetrate the market, we feel that our product could cover like a very big market share.
Yeah, so we actually talked to people at PATH. Me and Nikita worked a lot with that, and they directed us to a couple of documents that they came together for a couple of conferences just to talk about freeze preventative vaccine carriers. And there's lots of things on what they said, but the main thing is that right now the vaccine carriers out there aren't freeze preventative, and that's a major thing. So when you think about vaccine carriers, you'd probably say, oh yeah, it's so hot in India, you need something to have proper insulation, all of that stuff to keep the heat out. But what they don't realize is that ice is at 0 degrees Celsius. That's its freezing point. So when you place something right next to ice, it can freeze. And it takes a little bit for it to get to 0 to 2 degrees Celsius, which is the appropriate range. So being freeze safe is a new thing, and that's like really important for people.
And I should add one thing to that. So if you look in your folder, in the very last page, I did a trial where I conducted, basically I saw how the temperature was when you use ice packs. And what you find is that, so as materials melt, right, they keep their surroundings at the point at which they melt. So if the melting point is like 0.6 degrees Celsius or 0 degrees Celsius, it keeps that temperature while it melts because it's a phase change. So in the case of ice, because there are a few impurities, we found that the melting point of those ice packs was about 0.6 degrees Celsius. And it keeps it there for a while because that's where it melts. And the problem is that vaccines are supposed to be between 2 and 8 degrees Celsius. Because even if they don't freeze physically, the components inside them can coagulate and crystallize, which leads to the impotency. And so that's why we invented the phase change material, which actually I forgot to mention, but we made our own material that melts at about 2.4 degrees Celsius. So it no longer has that risk of causing the coagulation of those particles.
So I'm still trying to understand how many units you're manufacturing to meet the numbers when you're hit profitability.
So first year, as you can see here, that's going to be focused on research and development, so we can really build that product that our customer wants. But after that, we'll be launching it in year 2, and then we have approximate units based on based on our marketing strategy and also based on the approval from the World Health Organization. And that's really great because they give us such a nice reputation and increase the recognition of our product. So for the first year, I have 20,000 units there. And you know, our product is just starting to sell and it's selling pretty well. We've sold those many units and we've established relationships with people in India and can help us sell those many. But then as we're getting more and we're getting more and more recognition from the World Health Organization because we're such a reputable source, we're going to sell more and more units each year.
So our carrier, right, after we can prove that it is free state, it will essentially be replacing the carriers that we have currently because they're so inefficient and have so many problems. So that's why it is a huge market because there's so many carriers out there, and our pack can replace every one of those because it's actually about half the price of the ones that they use right now on average, and as the data shows, it keeps it in the right range. So actually, I can show you the slide that shows you our melting point data. So here is our PCM. So as you can see, where it levels off is 2.4 degrees Celsius. And if you look in your thing at that ice melting, it's at 0.6 degrees Celsius. And we did our temperature trial right here. And we saw that it kept it below 8 degrees Celsius for about 17 and a half hours. And the average ice pack, the average carrier right now only keeps it for about 8 hours. So it's also twice the time. So it's also better than average.
Do you think I can add something do you mind if I just add something really quick? So after we get approved by the World Health Organization, so there's a PQS list, and there's only 10 companies on that list that are approved to sell something like this. So, and Gavi and UNICEF are the biggest vaccine carrier procurers, and they only pick from that list. So we'll be the 11th, and they only pick from 11. It's not like there's 300 things they can choose from. And us being the only freeze preventative carrier on that list, that will give them a huge reason for them to pick us instead of other ones.
So because this is, when you build a product, pretty simple product when you manufacture it, what are the plans to protect the intellectual property of using the phase stuff in that kind of a box in this market?
So actually, we have started the patent process, but what we found is that there are many components of our products. Of our products. So we actually talked with a patent lawyer and a biotechnical advisor who said that we should write a invention disclosure, which is basically everything about our products that they can determine like which parts seem more patentable. I actually have the disclosure in there, but basically we plan to move forward with that and have them look over which parts are really the most unique. But the phase change material is definitely something that can be patented because the material that we use is commonly used like in like soap and stuff, not anything to do with PCM, so it's very new. And we actually add a little bit of that to water. So what we're doing is we're keeping the ability of water to absorb like large amounts of heat and still like maintain the same temperature. But we're just increasing the melting point a little bit by adding a substance, which is actually very hard to do because most things actually make the melting point go down. But we found a substance that makes it go up.
So you said you made your material. What lab did you guys use, and how did you know?
All
Yeah.
the CTO.
Okay, so actually there wasn't much need for a lab because these materials are very common, but we did cross-reference with my advisor, the MIT molecular engineering laboratory head. So he basically he confirmed our results, but we first came to this entire idea when we were trying to find some material that during phase change, which is the same concept as ice, but would keep it above 2 degrees Celsius. And we tried all these different things like fats and stuff like that. But what we found is that those things, they didn't really absorb much heat before melting. ice was really like the star there. So then what we came to was like, okay, what if there's an additive to ice to this water that can make it, you know, just a little bit higher while retaining like the power of those hydrogen bonds. And so that's kind of how we made it. And actually, our product at first it wasn't even like this. We went through a lot of changing. So it started out as this weird one-time use pack, which is for vaccines. But it was basically, it used a reaction between water and ammonia, ammonia salt. And that made that brought the temperature down to the right place. But during trials, it wasn't working because all the salt wasn't properly dissolving in the water. So then, 1 week before the competition, we're like, oh my god, this is not going to work. So we completely reformed our idea and came up with this, which is the box and PCM. The phase change material actually came up with one of my talks with this professor who is the head of the research and engineering laboratory at, sorry, she works at a company, but she's like the head, and she first suggested like maybe a phase change material would work. And then so that's how we kind of incorporated it into our product, and then we did a lot of testing and developed it